Hello and welcome to France 2022, the campaign, our daily show covering the presidential race. Only 5 days to go before round one. Today, a tragic death of a Jewish man takes center stage while the conservative hopeful crosses the Atlantic to fish for desperately needed vote. Here's the recap of the day with Shirley Sitbon.
It's a death that is shaking up the campaign. Jeremy Cohen, a Jewish man with a mental handicap, was killed by a streetcar back in February. His death is making headlines because a video shows he was hit as he escaped a group of men who had attacked him. But police shut their probe, and it was the victim's family who had to find the evidence to reopen it. It's a tweet from Éric Zemmour that propelled the case to the headlines. Why has no media, no politician, no member of the government mentioned the death of Jeremy Cohen, who was beaten up by thugs, wrote the candidate. Marine Le Pen followed suit.
Est-ce qu'on n'a pas, en réalité, travesti cet acte affreux qui a consisté à frapper, à molester un jeune juif handicapé parce qu'on ne voulait pas parler de cela au moment de la campagne présidentielle?
President Emmanuel Macron accused some on the far right of manipulating the facts to denounce a lack of security.
Les drames humains, il y en a chaque jour, ne doivent pas donner lieu à des manipulations politiques, quelles qu'elles soient. Voilà. Il faut un travail de la justice et de la police.
The fact the attack may have been anti-Semitic makes the case even more sensitive.
Je pense que c'est l'enquête qui doit le faire. Ça serait absolument abominable parce qu'on sait qu'a priori ce jeune homme portait régulièrement la kippa.
Fabien Roussel, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, Anne Hidalgo have called for a thorough investigation, stressing the growing problem of anti-Semitism. Valérie Pécresse tweeting there should be zero tolerance for what she calls barbarians. In Guadeloupe, Pécresse asked voters a key question.
Alors, une femme présidente, ça vous dirait? Ah, super! Une femme présidente.
Ce serait bien, ça. Ça s'est jamais fait en France.
Pas n'importe quelle blonde. Pas Marine Le Pen, hein. Faut pas se tromper de deux blondes, hein. Faut pas se tromper, hein.
A last-ditch effort to pull as many people as possible to voting stations.
La vie chère, eh bien, on va s'en occuper avec un panier de produits, de 600 produits, qui sera bloqué pour permettre que là où on a le plus de difficultés, eh bien, ce soit pas là qu'on ait les prix les plus chers à payer.
Ça va?
Communist Fabien Roussel got back to the basics of political work, door-to-door campaigning in front of a dozen cameras.
Je suis venu ici pour répondre à vos questions.
That is all from the campaign trail. Meet again tomorrow, same time, same place.
Okay, well, we can welcome now our campaign commentator Angela Diffley. Welcome to you.
Hi, Tom.
Angela, we want to talk again about the tragic death of Jeremy Cohen. This has caused a lot of controversy. Why has it become such a campaign issue?
Well, it's become a campaign issue because the family contacted Éric Zemmour. They were dissatisfied with the police action in this investigation. The police themselves had failed to find any witnesses. We're not quite clear why that is yet. And so the family themselves had to put out flyers and eventually got hold of this video which suggested what had happened immediately before his death. So they hoped that by letting Éric Zemmour know about this, that he would put it in the spotlight and that would galvanise the police into pushing the investigation forward. All of that seems to be happening already. We are 3 days ahead. There are 3 days left of campaigning for this presidential election, and everything is politics. There is a famous incident as well here in France. In 2002, on the final day of campaigning, on the Friday before the Sunday vote, a very elderly man was beaten up and left for dead, and his house was set on fire. He appeared on the news bulletins with his face severely battered. And on the Sunday, Jean-Marie Le Pen, far-right candidate, for the first time got into the second round. And a lot of analysts surmise that it might be that very brutal attack was fresh in the minds of people. Jean-Marie Le Pen was tough on security, and that pushed him into the second round. So it's made a few of the other candidates nervous.
Yeah, and are some of the candidates managing to sort of make traction out of this?
Well, the person who isn't is Emmanuel Macron. 68% of the French people in a recent poll said they thought he had a bad record on security, crime, law and order. And so he is among the people who have said we should not exploit this affair. We saw it in our film just a moment ago. He said it's a tragic event, but it shouldn't be manipulated and made into a campaign issue. The others will reply that anything is politics. COVID is not seen as an issue which is exploited. Ukraine isn't seen as an issue which is exploited. And so those candidates who feel this is an important issue have hit back on that comment. Marine Le Pen and Éric Zemmour both want security back at the centre of the campaign. Zemmour did very well at the beginning, back before Christmas, when it was at the centre of the campaign. And they both have said they would have much, much tougher sentencing. They repeat what the police says, which is that when these people are arrested, the judges give them too lax sentences. So they want this issue to stay in the front of the campaign for the remaining days. The race is really, really tightening now. And so we'll see whether it resonates with voters, whether they see this as a single issue, or, as Zemmour says, that the left is in denial and that France has a serious problem with violent crime. We'll see what the voters think.
OK, well, thank you very much indeed for that. Angela Diffley, thank you. Well, let's take a look at how the candidates are doing in the polls. We have a new IFOP fiducial survey out this Tuesday. What does it say?
It says that Emmanuel Macron is still leading the pack, 27%. Then comes Marine Le Pen, 23%. The far-left candidate Jean-Luc Mélenchon, 16.5%. Then comes the conservative candidate Valérie Pécresse. We just saw her in overseas territory, 9.5%. Éric Zemmour, who we just talked about, also 9.5%.
OK, and just looking at the trend this last month or so, quite a striking evolution.
Yes, it's interesting. We went back to March the 11th. Then the spread between Emmanuel Macron and Marine Le Pen was 13.5%. 3.5 weeks later, it is down to 4%. So it's tighter than ever. And you can see on the graph that there is a clear correlation between Le Pen's surge and the slide of her far-right rival, Éric Zemmour. He's back to under 10%. She's well over 20%, which is why she is in pole position for a rematch of 2017 when she faced off against Emmanuel Macron.
OK, so in an eventual second round, what might we expect according to the pollsters?
According to the pollster, Emmanuel Macron would still win, like 5 years ago, 53% versus 47%. But as I just said, it's much tighter, much closer, because in 2017, it was 64 versus 36% in favor of Emmanuel Macron.
OK, now the candidates are holding their very last campaign events. This Tuesday, the far left leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon has been holding his mark.
Yes, he is physically, as we talk in the northern town of Lille, and through the use of holograms, he will appear simultaneously in 10 other locations. Our Wassim Cornet is on hand. He is in Lille to follow the rally. Wassim, if you can hear us, Mélenchon is firing on all cylinders. He's hoping to finally reach the second round for his third presidential election. He really believes he has a shot.
Yeah, really. I mean, firing on all cylinders, multiplying efforts, quite literally multiplying himself tonight. As you mentioned, he's in the northern city of Lille in the flesh, but his hologram is being transmitted live to 11 other rallies in 11 other cities across France. And it's a technique that was used already in 2017 for the leader of France Unbowed, but it's been brought back for this presidential campaign. The goal was to cover the country to make sure that there was not a single point across all mainland France that was over 250 kilometers away from a France Unbowed crowd rally tonight. The team knows that they have to keep the ball rolling. The polls have been looking quite good for Jean-Luc Mélenchon for quite some time, but he will need all the votes he can get to make sure he can get to the second round. He's trying to reach out to the undecided voters, to socialist voters, to green voters, telling them he's really the only chance that they will have to see a left-wing candidate in the second round, telling them to cast a useful vote and potentially propel him to the second round, even if they don't fully agree with his political views.
Okay, well, thank you very much for bringing us all the latest from that Wassim Cornet, rather a noisy hall there. Surprised you could hear yourself think or speak. Well, one problem, of course, for Jean-Luc Mélenchon is the candidacy of the Communist Party. Mark, that's a first since 2007, isn't it?
Yes, and the communist candidate, Fabien Roussel, has in many ways been the surprise of this campaign. Not so much for his advocacy, but for his declared love for French steak and wine. Since he did so back in late January, he has made a name for himself. Let's take a listen to Fabien Roussel.
Un bon vin, une bonne viande, un bon fromage, pour moi c'est la gastronomie française, mais pour y avoir accès à cette bonne gastronomie, il faut y avoir des moyens.
And so our reporters Claire Pacalin and Karina Chabour met communist supporters in Paris at one of the party's so-called apéritifs events. That's a play on apéritifs and, of course, Roussel. Here's their report.
French wine, cheese and baguette. The Communist Party's candidate Fabien Roussel has shaped his campaign around a message that life's simple pleasures should be affordable to all. The party is reaching out to the far left, its traditional base, as well as voters it's lost to the far right, and French people who might not vote at all.
Le sens des appels Roussel, c'est de retrouver les camarades avec qui on fait campagne, de revoir des gens qui aussi peuvent venir à l'occasion en passant du quartier qu'on a vu au cours de la campagne.
Il y a quand même beaucoup de gens encore qui doutent, qui ne savent pas s'ils vont aller voter. Bon, alors discuter un peu avec eux, c'est d'abord les inciter à aller voter, de voter pour leurs idées, de ne pas céder à leur peur. C'est important, l'échange.
À la base, j'étais pas vraiment à gauche, j'étais plutôt pour Macron. Mais ce que j'aime chez le PCF, c'est que c'est plutôt la gauche d'avant. Vous savez, c'est une gauche très sociale, très humaine. On traite les gens dignement, on partage.
The party's manifesto is an ode to its traditional past, with an emphasis on social benefits, retirement at 60, and a minimum wage of 1,500 euros a month. But there's also a clear break with traditional allies, the Greens and other environmental activists, with Fabien Roussel accusing them of being out of touch with ordinary French people. Fabien Roussel is also very keen on getting a clear message across to gain wide appeal with voters, that every French person should be able to enjoy a chunk of cheese and a nice juicy steak.
Okay, well, let's end on a lighter and slightly gastronomic note.
Yes, not so light, actually, because we just heard about food, about wine, and I just couldn't resist taking you back and taking a look at the president who really, really loved eating, Jacques Chirac. He had a well-earned reputation for eating huge meals all day long. So, of course, he loved cheese, he loved ham, he loved oysters, and he had a soft spot for calf's head. Yes, it's a bit French, a bit weird, but he loved it. And he also loved, of course, downing not only fine red wine, but also even beer. And he really loved the Mexican beer, the Corona. And since it is nearly dinner time here in Paris, it's now time for us to wish you bon appétit, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you very much indeed, Mark. Thanks to Angela Diffley as well, our campaign editor. Thanks to you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.